Hi and welcome. This is Blender for absolute beginners. I'm using Blender version 4. We will go through what is Blender. We will download it, open and start it, and then navigate, see how we can navigate through the viewport, how you can add and delete objects and also move objects. So let's get started. Blender is a free open source 3D software where you can create and do things like modeling, rigging, animation, simulation, rendering, compositing, and motion track, even a little bit of video editing. It is totally open source and free. If you go to blender.org, you can find on the first page a download where you can download Blender. The system requirements for Blender isn't that hard. You don't need a very powerful computer to run this. So here you can see the specifications of what is recommended for the computer that you're using, whether it's a Windows, Mac or Linux based computer. When you go to the download page, you will choose your version for macOS Intel version or macOS Apple Silicon or Windows or Linux version. And then it's just a matter of downloading it and installing it on your computer. So when you've done that, it's time to start Blender, and we will continue there. When you start Blender, this is what you will see. And what we can do here is we will just click on the side in the viewport. Down here to the right, you can see my mouse and keyboard inputs. This here is called the viewport. And always when you're in Blender, you will have the default cube. You can notice that when I click on it, left click on it, you will get an orange highlight. That means that this object is selected. Always in the starting view in Blender, you will also have a lamp and a camera. To rotate in this viewport, I will go through the visual interface here with the visual tools. So if you go up here to the X, Y and Z, this is called the rotate view tool. So if I take my mouse here and left click on it, and then I will drag my mouse, I can look around in the viewport. The magnifying glass here is zoom, so I can just drag my mouse back or forward to zoom in and zoom out. With the hand here is the move tool. I can pan around in the viewport, left and right and up and down. For this you can use a mouse, or you can also use the trackpad on if you have a laptop. The camera is basically when you toggle on the camera, we go into the camera view. The camera that is over here. So click the camera and out again. It's a bit daunting the first time you start Blender. There is a lot of symbols, tools, texts and menus. Most of them you can just ignore in the beginning. So in the viewport, we have gone through how to navigate. Now we will see how we can add and delete objects. So if I left click on the cube, I can now delete this cube, and I will show you two ways how to do that. I can right click on my mouse and go down to delete. Click delete. To add that cube again, we can go to here, add, mesh, and select cube. The cube is back. So we will delete the cube again, but this time using a shortcut. Click on the cube, so we have it highlighted orange. I will press X on my keyboard and then select delete. A shortcut for adding objects is to hold down Shift and then press A. And we will go down to mesh, to cube, select the cube, and now it's here again. With this rotate view tool, we can also click directly on X to see from the side, Z straight up to down, X and Y. And to go out from this, I would just click here and drag. If I would like to move this cube, I have a few options here with the tools. I can select the move tool. And if I press on this axis that is represented X, Y and Z, so for example I can press the blue arrow, I click it and I drag. I will move the cube in the Z axis. If I go to the green arrow, I will move the cube in the y-axis. And here is the x-axis. If I click in the center, I can move it freely in all axes. To rotate the cube, we will use the rotate tool here. Select it. And we now have circles to represent the different axes. So if I want to rotate it in the x-axis, I select the red circle and rotate it. And the same goes for the other ones, the Z and the Y. And the white, you can rotate it freely in all axes. Here is the scale tool. So with this I can scale it up in the y-axis, X, Z. And if I select this one, I scale it up in several axes at once. And the transform tool is basically both the move tool and rotate tool into one. So I can move in the Z, for example, and I can also scale it up in the Z axis. So that's it for the first part in Blender for beginners. I hope it was helpful, and I hope to see you in the next part.